Our movie opens on a pleasant summer day as a beat-up man who is a prosecutor is being hung upside down in the middle of the jungle. A man named Sean finds him and approaches him, trying to help, but the prosecutor stops him and tells him to leave while he still has a chance. Now, a few goons and a notorious mobster named Edward Kim arrive, and after beating that man up and blaming him for the murder, Eddie ends up killing the man. And when Sean hears someone at the door and recognizes them as the same guys from yesterday, he quickly backs away while trying to find a hiding place. Suddenly, someone closes his mouth from behind him and pulls him in. The man threatens Sean to remain silent and do as he says in order to avoid further punishment. Sean is at home watching the news discussing the same incident he saw before his eyes, while this fabricated story being displayed by the media makes him scared and shocked. Agent Flynn and Sean board that flight and proceed to their business class seats. Now Flynn receives a call from retired agent Harris. Harris assures him that Eddie Kim was in good hands and wouldn't get a chance to escape anytime soon. Eddie, on the other hand, hence the FBI escorting someone to Lure, and they would be taking over the business class area, which meant that all first-class passengers had to move back to coach. During pre-boarding, passengers are showered with garlands and welcomed with floral leaves as they board the aircraft. There are contrasting personalities on this flight, including a gruff businessman who won't stop griping about traveling in coach, a woman with a dog, a mother and her infant, and the famous rapper 3G's enter the cabin with two of his bodyguards. A young boy and his older brother now board with the flight, and their father tells Claire that it's their first time flying alone. She consoles the children. One of the flight attendants, Tiffany, sits down with Sean and shares a drink. They start talking about Eddie Kim and some of the gruesome acts that highlight his reputation. Tiffany is taken aback when Sean mentions that he's a witness for Eddie's prosecution, but she finds it rather appealing. Now Hidden D is the only flight attendant left on the plane. Claire and Grace start emptying the food trays. After her last day, Claire reflects on how much she will miss everything. Perhaps she spoke too soon. There are less than 3 minutes left on the timer below. Flynn strikes up a conversation and mentions his own trip to Bali and how lovely the place is, subtly adding salt to his canceled plans. Sharon had mentioned to Flynn about his plans to visit Bali before this whole testimony thing came up. Now the timer there eventually goes off. An explosion breaks the barrier keeping the snakes in place. All of them surrounding the area are let loose, and the fun begins. Flynn starts to walk around the plane and happens to run into Claire, who was annoyed by the FBI taking over first-class seats. Flynn makes fun of her and then continues to walk around more. When Claire goes to investigate the aircraft's minor turbulence, the flight's captain informs her that they lost the board and proceeds to reset the breakers. Claire hears him collapse and calls out to Rick, who checks on the situation. Rick sees the captain lying unconscious on the ground and tells Claire that maybe he just had a heart attack, so that's some great news to share with the rest of the crew. Right after he takes care of that matter, he is attacked by a snake plunging at him, biting at his neck. Flynn believes that they should fly back to Honolulu, but it was already too far along in the journey, and flying towards Los Angeles would be the wiser choice. So Claire calls him and Agent Sanders to the cockpit and tells them how they discovered the captain dead. Tommy and Curtis, two passengers, are calmed down by Claire by suggesting a fun game to our adult viewers as the passengers gradually start to panic due to the continuing turbulence. As you watch the rest of this video, take a shot whenever you hear the word snake. Snakes begin to slide by the pilot's gears, and Rick shoos them away with a piece of paper and forceful hitting. "Come on, Rick, piece of paper." Chaos ensues in the plane when the oxygen masks fall down. But that's not the only thing falling down, because this is a wonderful bunch of deadly snakes. When the snakes attack the passengers forcefully, one of the passengers pulls out a barf bag, and as she opens it, a snake catches onto her throat, and well, that's the end of her. What her last words be considered onomatopoeia. Passengers are running around in attempts to escape, but these deadly reptiles bite and kill him. Now as Agent Flynn comes to Sanders' rescue, hero Flynn urges everyone to cautiously move forward as he approaches the coach area with a taser in hand to fight off the snakes, zapping them whenever they try to attack. However, because Americans are Americans, they push past one another to get to the front, causing a stampede. If the snakes on the plane weren't enough to kill you, we also have some crazy people who will do the job. Passengers on the plane do everything they can to defend themselves against these things. Flynn quickly formulates a strategy to deal with the chaos and instructs everyone to create a barrier between them and the snakes in order to protect themselves. Everyone grabs their bags and suitcases to start building a wall. A snake is just inches away from attacking a baby when Grace spots it. She saves the baby but regrettably gets bitten herself as a result. Claire searches for Tommy and Curtis out of concern for their safety. When she and Flynn find him, Tommy has been bitten. The snake bite on Tommy's wrist swells up, and to treat the poison, the mother of the baby follows the customary procedure in which she first takes olive oil into her mouth and then oozes out the wound. Harris is assuring a rescue and backup team to LA when Flynn calls him to inform him of the terrible news of Sanders' death. Harris gathers his team and asks them to find the best person to figure out these snakes. Flynn brings up the lease on the aircraft, which attracts the attention of the doctor, who tells them that they must have been sprayed with a pheromone to trigger the snakes, and explains to Flynn the various reactions to snake poison. Agent Flint, however, snaps back, saying that he's not a zoologist, and tells him that he'll try to find a few different dead snakes to spew on. Agent Flynn is asked questions by the agitated and angry passengers in first class after the chaotic situation in coach, but Sean interjects and talks about his relationship with Eddie Kim, which makes them lose all faith in him. However, Flynn takes charge and tells them to stop arguing while he comes up with a plan to escape the aircraft alive. Now the pilot is on board. When Claire goes up to check on Rick, she discovers that he was attacked by the same snake. She then realizes that Rick was attacked and retreats in fear that the plane is about to crash. Flynn then issues an order for everyone to immediately sit down and fasten their seat belts. Claire manages to kill the snake by reaching for a hammer that is placed in the corner. Sean advises everyone to head up to business class, where it's a little safer, but more people are attacked as they run upstairs. Just then a snake, the biggest one yet, falls down on and attacks the grumpy businessman from earlier. Well, what goes around comes around you. Flynn arrives and tells her they need to take care of the aircraft with all their might. They pull on the steering to stop the crash. Now the snakes are starting to get closer to the passengers. Rick arrives with one functioning arm and is determined to help. He takes over as the pilot and instructs Claire and Flynn to go take care of the rest. A life raft is then deployed to form a new barrier against these things after Flynn and Claire struggled to keep the plane from coming down. Dr. Prince receives pictures of the snakes and tells Harris that because they are from different parts of the world, it is difficult to find anti-venom. Harris thinks, great, let's add that to the list of problems. The air conditioning is failing on the plane. The engines are almost failing as well. There are still a lot of snakes on that plane. But wait, it gets worse. Flynn is informed by Rick that he must manually correct the air situation because there is no other way to do it. In addition to all the other issues, Rick suggests that Flynn use the heat as motivation. The rapper arrives first, loses all composure, and manages to take Agent Flynn's gun. He holds it up while threatening everyone before his friend calms him down and he sits back down. When Flynn heads down the plane to examine that electrical panel and repair the AC, he is guided by Claire. However, when he arrives, he discovers that the lever is stuck and that there are snakes waiting to attack him. Whoever is still standing from the drinking game Bravo, so Flynn over here kills him with a flamethrower and gets to work on that panel. Don't worry, you can see more of her in the Insidious series. Harris, who is searching for a solution to this madness, calls Flynn and informs him of the situation. He claims that the anti-venom is ready and waiting for him in Los Angeles. They then proceed to tell the rest of the world about the good news. Fortunately, they quickly find a replacement for Rick to fly the plane, but before that they have to clear out the snakes in the cockpit, and Flynn had enough. He pulled out his gun and told everyone to open the windows before securing everyone. Rick in the cockpit, they find him dead with snakes surrounding the place. Man was barely holding on to life with his half-bitten limbs, and now he's gone for good. Rip. Claire's asking whether anyone on the plane knows how to ride this thing. Flynn goes ahead and thanks Sean for everything and for helping them get out alive. But he spoke too soon, because the next thing you know, Sean is being attacked by a snake. He survived the entire movie, but just couldn't wait for the last few minutes. So he shoots the snake to kill it, causing him to fall back down the evacuation slide. Luckily, he was wearing a bulletproof vest, which you know, so go Sean. Thank you for watching. Why don't you consider subscribing while you're here? We have the best recaps around and would love to have you part of our community. Thank you and see you in the next one.